Welcome back to our 18th explainer. So, what if I told you that according to one of the world's oldest philosophies, the you that you think of as you, the part that carries your personality, your habits, your karma, isn't actually your true self at all? Well, today we're diving deep into the absolutely brilliant and crucial concept from Samkhya philosophy known as the Linga Sharira, or the subtle body. Okay, let's just jump right into the central mystery. The Samkhya school tells us that our true self, what it calls Purusha, is pure, unchanging consciousness. It's basically just a witness. It doesn't do anything, it doesn't change. So here's the million-dollar question. If our self is totally static, then what in the world is it that actually carries our personality, our habits, and our karma from one life to the next? To solve this, we're going to go on a little philosophical detective story. First, we'll survey the scene of the crime. That's the great Samkhya puzzle. Then, we'll identify our prime suspect, the subtle body itself. We'll look at its MO through some amazing analogies like the actor and its stage. We'll establish its motive as the carrier of karma and see how it fits into the whole cosmic scheme. And finally, we'll crack the case and discover how this knowledge holds the key to liberation. All right, Section 1, the great Samkhya puzzle. You know, the core of the issue is what philosophers call the problem of continuity. How do you possibly connect the idea of a perfect, unchanging self with the messy, nitty-gritty reality of cause and effect, of personality and rebirth that we all seem to experience? So at the heart of this puzzle is this really radical dualism in Samkhya. On one side, you've got Purusha, pure, inactive consciousness. It's just the silent witness. And on the other side, you've got Prakriti. That's all of material nature, which is constantly active, constantly changing. Think of them like oil and water. They are two completely separate categories of being. They just don't mix. So how can one possibly affect the other? How can all the experiences that happen in the material world leave any kind of mark that travels across lifetimes? And this is where our suspect enters the picture. The genius solution proposed by the Samkhya thinkers is the Linga Sharira. Now, the term literally means the sign body or characteristic body. It's this third thing. It's not the eternal self, and it's not the gross physical body we have now. It's an intermediary vehicle that transmigrates, carrying all our psychological baggage, our dispositions, from one life right into the next. So what exactly is the subtle body? For that, let's turn to the primary evidence. Our first key text, Karika 40 of the Samkhya Karika, which gives us the foundational definition. First, the Sanskrit original. Purvotpannam asaktam niyatam mahadadi sukshma paryantam samsarati nirupabhogam bhavairadhivasitam lingam. And here's the English translation. The subtle body produced primordially, unconfined, constant, composed of the principles beginning with Mahat and ending with the subtle elements, transmigrates, incapable of experiencing itself, yet endowed with dispositions. Okay, whoa. That is a dense definition, absolutely packed with information, so let's break it down piece by piece. Let's unpack this. First, it's called primordial, unconfined, and constant. So this tells us it's ancient, it's not tied down to any single physical body, and it just keeps on going through lifetimes. It's made up of all the subtle stuff, from the cosmic intellect down to the senses. But here are the two most crucial clues for our investigation. It is incapable of experience itself, so it's not conscious, and yet it is endowed with dispositions, which are our deep-seated psychological tendencies. So here's the key takeaway. It's the carrier, not the experiencer. Okay, but how does this actually work? I mean, how do we picture this? Well, the next two verses use these really powerful analogies to show us exactly what this subtle body is like. Hires chitram yathashrayam amrite sthanavadibhya yatha vinachaya tadvad vina avishesher natishthata nirashrayam lingam. And as a painting cannot exist without a support, and as a shadow cannot exist without a post, so too the subtle body does not remain unsupported without the subtle bases. This is such a brilliant way to illustrate a key distinction. The subtle body isn't some kind of free-floating ghost or independent soul. A painting needs a canvas to even exist. A shadow needs an object to cast it. In the exact same way, the Linga Sharira is a product of Prakriti, of nature. It always needs a subtle material basis. It is not self-sufficient like the pure consciousness of Purusha is. And this keeps that line between consciousness and matter perfectly, beautifully clear. Now for one of the most famous analogies in the entire text, from Karika 42. Here's the Sanskrit.
Purushartha hetukam idam nimitta naimittika prasangena. Prakriter vibhutva yogan natavad vyavatistate lingam.
And in English, it reads, this subtle body, to serve the purpose of Purusha, appears in different roles like a dramatic actor, through association with instrumental causes and their effects. Now, did you catch that key phrase, to serve the purpose of Purusha? This whole elaborate mechanism actually has a goal. This actor analogy is just so incredibly clarifying. I mean, think of it like this. The Linga Sharira, the subtle body, that's the actor. It's the constant thing that persists. And the different roles it plays? Well, those are the different bodies and lifetimes it takes on. A human, an animal, maybe even a deity. Each one with its own karmic script. And what's the purpose of this whole cosmic drama? It's all to provide experience for the audience of one, the witnessing Purusha, which learns through all these experiences and is ultimately trying to find liberation. So we've figured out what the subtle body is and kind of how it works. But now we need to understand what's inside it. It isn't just an empty vehicle, right? The next few verses show us that it is deeply, profoundly psychological and moral. This is where we see it as the carrier of karma. And Karika 43 is super specific about this. It states that our bhavas, our deep-seated dispositions like virtue, vice, knowledge, and passion, they live in the instruments of the subtle body, like the intellect and the mind. They do not live in the pure, untouched self, the Purusha. So your personality, your tendencies, all your conditioning, all of that is just baggage carried by this transmigrating vehicle. It's not the real you. And then Karikas 44 and 45 draw a direct causal line between these dispositions and our karmic destiny. Here are the key phrases from the Sanskrit. Dharmena gamanam urdvam, jnanana chapavargo, vairagyat prakritilaya, samsaro bhavati rajasad ragat. This table just spells it all out perfectly. It's pure cause and effect. Virtue, or dharma, leads to an upward movement, a better rebirth. Vice, adharma, leads you downward. Passionate attachment, raga, that's what keeps you spinning on the wheel of transmigration, samsara. But, and this is so important, knowledge, jnana, that leads directly to the final goal, liberation or apavarga. The coloring of your subtle body literally determines the direction of your soul's journey. We now get to one of the most profound verses in this entire discussion, Karika 52. It reveals just how deeply connected the vehicle, the subtle body, is with its cargo, all those dispositions. It's this idea of an interdependent creation. Here is the Sanskrit for Karika 52. Navina bhaver lingam, na lingena bhavanirvritti, lingakyo bhavakyas tasmad trividach pravartate sargaha. And the translation is just beautifully symmetrical. There is no subtle body without dispositions, and no manifestation of dispositions without the subtle body. Therefore, creation proceeds in a twofold manner. It's basically pointing to a classic chicken and egg relationship that is mutual and, according to Samkhya, totally beginningless. They always arise together. The classical commentators use a perfect analogy for this. They say it's like a seed and a sprout. You just can't have one without the other. There is no such thing as an empty, subtle body without any psychological conditioning. And there's no way for that conditioning to exist without the vehicle of the subtle body to carry it. So the bottom line is this. We are dealing with the continuity of a conditioned personality that travels through time. And now we come to the verdict in our philosophical detective story. We've identified the suspect. We've understood its methods, its motives. So why does all this matter? Well, this final section connects all the evidence back to Samkhya's ultimate concern, liberation from suffering. This is the key. Karika 55 delivers the final, really sobering conclusion. In Sanskrit, Tatra jara marana kratam dukham prapnoti chetanaha purushaha lingasya avinivrittehe tasmad dukham swabhavena. And in English, so long as the subtle body does not cease, the conscious Purusha encounters suffering. Therefore, suffering persists by the very nature of embodied existence. And there it is. That's the punchline. The subtle body, our actor, is the direct carrier of the cycle of suffering, of samsara. As long as it keeps existing and taking on new roles, the witnessing Purusha will continue to experience the pain that comes with birth, aging, and death. So, after all of this really intricate philosophy, you might be sitting there thinking, Why does any of this matter to me? Why go through all the trouble of understanding this complex mechanism of a primordial, transmigrating, disposition-carrying vehicle? It matters because, as the tradition makes crystal clear, the subtle body is the indispensable middle term. It's the linchpin of the entire system. It's the only thing that explains how a pure, unchanging self can be connected to a world of change and suffering without ever being tainted by it. It's the bridge that makes the entire philosophy work. And that brings us to this final, truly transformative insight. The whole goal of Samkhya isn't about getting a better role in the next life or accumulating more good karma to get a better part to play. True freedom, then, is not about improving the role. It's about realizing you are not the actor. It is that profound, discriminative knowledge that you are the silent, free, witnessing consciousness, the Purusha, and not the subtle body that carries the whole drama of karma and rebirth.
And that profound realization is where we'll leave it for today. If this whole exploration of the subtle body gave you a new perspective, let me know by hitting that like button. What did you find most surprising about this concept? I'd love to hear it, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you know someone else who loves to wrestle with these big questions, share this explainer with them. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the heart of philosophy. Thanks so much for joining the investigation.